Hello, today I want to talk to you about overcoming creative blocks. We're going to talk about identifying that block, changing your environment, combating the inner critic, setting smaller goals, and then reframing failure. So to begin with, identifying the blocks, the things that are holding you back, you've got to name those creative fears, the things that I'm not good enough. I don't have what it takes. I don't have the time. I don't have the creativity of my family. I'm not as good as so-and-so. Whatever your fears are, you need to name them. You need to reflect on when that block started and when it gets triggered. When does it come up for you? If you list all the myths about creativity that you've internalized and then you debunk them, you pinpoint those specific moments that creativity was flowing for you, you're able to get back to that space. So maybe you were in school and you had a teacher who, said that your drawing wasn't up to par. Or you have, like I do, I have a father who's very good. He's an amazing artist. And he's an amazing artist in a bunch of different things. So he's a musician, he's a painter, he can draw whatever. And I've always compared my work to his. But the problem is that my work is completely different. It's a completely different type of work because I'm not who he is. I'm not the same person. I haven't had the same experiences. I haven't had the same life adventures that he's had. And so my work and his work are going to be completely different. When you think about these triggers and these fears and these myths that you've created in your world, what is it that started that? Where did that begin? And then you're going to think about identifying those external forces that drain your activity. Your family, your teachers at school, social media, circumstances. Maybe you're in an environment that's just not very creative. If you're in a square box in your office and there's nothing beautiful around you, you're not going to find a reason for creativity. So you need to step outside of your circle sometimes to be able to find that. Changing your environment is a great way to do that. Rearranging your creative space. I'm actually in the process of rearranging the sunroom so that I can create a place where I can have some of my art and be able to do some more creative things. It needs to feel inspiring. It needs to feel uplifting. It needs to have what I need in it for me to be able to create. So I need to have my art supplies. I need to have, my guitar out so that I see it, so that I know I need to practice. Whatever that space is, create it for yourself. And it doesn't have to be a large space. It doesn't have to be an entire room. It could be a small corner with a little desk where you can write. You can write your music and you can write your poetry, your books, or you can draw a small sketch. As long as it's a space where you can go and you can put other people aside and say, you know what, just leave me alone for a little bit. Create a portable creativity kit that you can take anywhere, a notebook, pens, some small recorder where you can record ideas for music or for a book, or even ideas for something that you want to paint. Your phone is a great, I use my phone all the time for taking pictures of things that I find interesting, for recording notes for myself of things that I want to remember to do later, to create art pieces. I take pictures of crazy looking trees all the time. So you've got something with you at all times that you can use to record the things that you want to do. But have a notebook, a pen where you can, sketch out these ideas that you've got in your head. Create an experiment with unusual places. So go to the library, go to the park, go to a coffee shop, and imagine where you could find creativity in those areas. So I know growing up, I've not seen it in a very long time because everybody's on their phone. But I remember going to coffee shops and seeing people sketching all the time. Just sketching people walking by, or having ideas come up in their head about music that they want to write. we can bring that back and we can start doing that again and expand our creativity. Even if you're in the coffee shop and your creative outlet is writing a business plan for yourself, that's a creative outlet. It doesn't need to be artistic. I'm just using artistic examples because that's what's close to my heart. So creativity has many facets. Another thing that you could probably need to do is declutter your space. I know for us, because we're working in, like I said, we're working in a construction zone. We've got things everywhere. Part of what we've done this past weekend is declutter the area that we're in. We have a lot of Roy's mom's paperwork. We spent the entire weekend going through her old paperwork. And I've mentioned this before. She's had paperwork since like 1989. And decluttering that, I had a burning ceremony the other day because we're trying to change our environment by lightening the load, so to speak. It's heavy and uninspiring when it's cluttered. So when you're in a space that's light and airy and you've got room to be able to move around, you're more inclined to do the things that you want to do on the creative side. Add sensory elements to your space: aromatherapy, lighting, music, soft cushions. Have a space where you can, if you're an artist or painter, you can stand up and the mat that you're standing on is soft and squishy so that you're not hurting your legs. Whatever it is, create a space that is cozy and comfortable and allows you to be able to express yourself in a better way. If you've got a space that you enjoy being in, then you're more inclined to do the things that you want to do in that space. Like I said, have your art supplies out. If you're creating a business and you've got an idea for some gadget, create a space where you can work on that, where you can build that. I love wood workshops. They're beautiful. The tools that woodworkers use. Even if you have a shop where you're working on, being creative in electrical things or mechanical things, you can still have those spaces and have them looking neat and having them be a space that is inviting for you to come and work. If it's a mess and tools are everywhere and it's dirty and not, picked up, it's not a place that you really want to go. It's a place that is like, okay, if I have to, I have to. I'm all about cleaning up my space after I leave. It's more inviting for me next time I come back. I'm more inclined to come back more often because I see that, okay, this is a space I really enjoy being in. So the next thing is combating your inner critic. This is a big one. This really is. And it kind of goes back to the first one where we're working through your fears, only it's a little different. The fears are more of things that you're afraid of, that you're not going to be good enough, or that your work is not going to be good enough, or that it's not going to be, something that other people are going to appreciate. And that works with your inner critic, but we're going to flip that around, and you're going to take those critical things that you're hearing in your head, that for me, Sadie is saying, screaming at me, barking at me, and you're going to reframe them into affirmations. So I'm not good enough. Obviously, I am good enough. I'm never going to be as great a painter as my dad. Reframe to, I'm my own creative painter. I have my own style. I have my own way of expressing my creativity. Reframing that negative voice in your head allows you to be able to imagine this inner critic as a character, a grumpy old troll. Disarming them with humor and laughing at them, making jokes. And when they say something negative or you're not good enough and you laugh at them and you're like, I am. It sounds ridiculous, but it really makes a difference. So a long time ago, I wonder if I still have it. We've moved so much and I've lost a lot of my artwork, but I had created this troll, and I called it a Perry troll because obviously when you're on social media, you're going to have trolls. So I created this troll, and he had this huge nose, and it was something that I had set up beside my camera because whenever that negativity came up and that self-doubt came up, I could look at that troll and it was ridiculous looking. It had, it was purple and green. It had this huge nose. It had these big boggly eyes. And it was a short little thing. I mean, the picture was only this big, but his nose was like massive. So very disproportionate. But I could look at that and just laugh and think, that's not true. That those things that are coming up, the things that are being said, the things that I'm hearing in my, Sadie barking, the inner critic, they're not true. They're not true because I haven't practiced enough, because I haven't studied enough, because I haven't worked through my process enough. So as you're doing these things, think about a troll and think about how grotesque or how silly looking he is. And anytime you think about those negative voices, think about that troll and just laugh it off. Keep a brag book of your creative successes. When you have moments of doubt, having something that you can go back on and reflect on and say, yeah, you know what? I created this piece of artwork. I wrote this story. I created this piece of music. I built this mechanical thing. I rebuilt the engine in my car. I can build something else. Whatever it may be, I built this business. It's maybe it's not successful, but maybe it's growing. Maybe it wasn't what I was meant to do, and now I can build something else. So don't allow that negativity to stop you. Create a book where you've got even if there's small successes, write them down so that you have something back on that you can go back and reflect on. Practice self-compassion when judgment creeps in. Be kind to yourself. Don't beat yourself up even more than you are already being beat up. Where did those voices come from? If those are voices from people who weren't looking out for your best interest, even though they say they may have been, disregard them. Don't judge yourself for what somebody else said because you weren't in a space where you were good enough for them. You're good enough for you. Regardless of what stage you're at, you're where you need to be. So moving forward, be kind to yourself. Be compassionate. Talk to yourself kindly. Say things like, progress over perfection. Always progress over perfection. I'm progressing. I can only get better. Yes, this looks like a mess, but it will get better. Every piece of artwork, every piece of anything goes through an ugly adolescent age. It's got pimples. It's got, crazy hair. It looks like a mess. Hasn't showered in a week. Whatever it may be. But eventually, it grows into this amazing, beautiful thing. So be kind to yourself and know that you're just working through that. We are all works in progress. We may be in that messy stage, but we will all work out of it as long as we're being true to ourselves and not beating ourselves up and tearing ourselves apart. So set smaller goals. Create those big projects in your mind, write them all out, and then start with the smaller things. What can you turn into a micro task that you can complete in under 20 minutes? What is it that you've got this huge thing? I've got pieces of artwork that are 4 foot by 5 foot. I didn't finish the whole thing in one sitting. It would have taken me hours and days. So working on it little by little, I'm able to create things that end up being much bigger. The businesses that we've not created overnight. There is no overnight success. There is no, I've got this creative thing in my mind and I'm going to have it done in 5 minutes. No, you've got to break it down. Make a simple checklist of your next creative session and then to maintain that focus and then follow up with that. Keep a schedule for yourself if you need to. I'm terrible with schedules. So I set myself up, okay, I'm going to do something creative today, or I'm going to do something creative this week. And then whenever I work it in, I work it in. So start with small warm-up exercises like free writing or sketching or, humming a tune out to yourself or writing out when you're writing out a business plan or you're writing out getting ideas for a business. just warm up. Well, I could create a business in this or that or whatever, just to build momentum for what it is that you want to work on. Then choose one small creative win for each day and celebrate it. What is one small creative thing that you did today? It could be anything. My creative thing that I'm doing today is this video. It may not seem like it's a creative thing, but it is. I'm going to be editing it, the whole production thing, whatever it may be. Setting everything up, making sure that everything's right. It's a creative thing. Avoid multitasking. And I say this with a caveat, because there are some of us who need to be multitasking. And I know there are going to be people out there who are going to be like, no, you can't multitask because things don't work. You can't work on more than one thing. Some of us can. I'm not necessarily a person. I know Roy is. He has to be multitasking. And what taught me more about this was with human design. I realized that if someone is a manifesting generator, a time bender, they need to be multitasking. They need to be doing more than one thing because their brain is just going so crazy that they've got to be able to do more than one thing to be able to focus on the thing that they really want to do. So Roy is working and he's listening to music or playing a game. So don't avoid multitasking if that's something that helps you to create. If it's not, be honest with yourself, because for me, I know multitasking is not the greatest thing. I get distracted. I get all over the place, and I really don't focus and give my creative task the undivided attention that it needs, because I'm busy doing other things, or I'm coming back and bouncing all over and not just sitting down and doing it. This, for example, I can't be doing other things because this would throw me off. I have to concentrate on what I'm doing, on what I want to say. I've got my notes, but it still doesn't mean that I can be doing other things. So if you're the type of person who needs to be able to be multitasking, then do it. If you can do it, do it. If not, then focus on what it is that you want to work on. And the last thing is reframing that failure. So write about a creative failure that you've had, a piece of artwork that didn't turn out quite the way that you expected. What did you learn from it? What did you realize maybe you need to do a little differently? Maybe you need to practice a little bit more so that you get a little bit better with perspective. Maybe you need to study a little bit more music so that you understand how harmonies work. Maybe you need to get a business partner or business coach or business mentor that can help you with building the business. What is it that you think you need and what you've learned from that failure? It's never failure in that. It's a failure if you don't take something from it that you've learned. That's a failure. But if you can glean something that you can learn from it, it's not a failure anymore. It's a learning lesson. So explore that concept of failing forward. Each setback moves you a step closer to that growth. So each time that I've drawn something that didn't quite turn out the way that I expected, I look at it and go, okay, so what is it about it that didn't turn out? What do I need to do differently? For me, I've realized that I'm more of an intuitive artist. I just need to let myself go and not be concerned with how perfect a line is or how, it looks exactly like whatever it is that I'm working on. I give myself creative license. Why? Because it's only for me. I'm not creating this as a commission work that, somebody else is expecting it to look in a particular way. This is for me. So I'm going to allow myself the openness to create in whatever way is best and whatever way looks greatest to me. So share that imperfect work. Share it with someone just to embrace the vulnerability in yourself. Yes, you're going to have people who are critics. Yes, you're going to have people who say it looks terrible or say that it sounds terrible or say that your writing is awful. If you're not going to build a thick skin and you want to share your work with the world, you're not going to be able to. even if this work is for you, someone else saying something critical, be honest. Say, hey, okay, so you think it looks terrible. First off, understand that you're probably asking someone who does not do things creatively themselves. If they do, they will be able to give you constructive criticism. They're not going to tear you down just for the sake of tearing you down. If you're showing your work to someone who's criticizing you just to be mean, don't show them your work anymore. And do not take what they say to heart. Please, for the love of God, don't do that. Show your work to someone who's going to give you some creative feedback. Who's going to say, okay, so what were you trying to express here? What were you trying to accomplish here? What was it that you were looking to do? And then give them your ideas, give them your thoughts. And if there's someone who's worthwhile, they will give you some feedback that helps you to grow, that helps you to improve what you're working on. So experiment with creative challenges designed to fail just for fun. Create something that you know is going to mess up, or mess it up on purpose. I talked about yesterday with the 100 layers art piece that I was creating. I had computer pieces on there. I had screws and all kinds of crazy things on there. Pieces of things that I had found on the ground, acorns and all kinds of things. So it was a piece that I had created to purposely not look beautiful. It turned out interesting, but if you're going to create something that you purposely create to fail, it's so much more fun. It's so much more freeing. It allows you to just not give a fuck. Really. Just not give a damn how it's going to turn out, because you're like, okay, I'm doing this on purpose. I'm making it so that it purposely fails. The great thing about that is that you can use that as feedback, as an invitation to explore new directions, to realize that you don't create like somebody else does. You create like you do. For me, that was incredibly freeing. I realized that I don't paint like my father. I don't paint like my art teacher. I paint like me. My artwork does not look like Roy's. His artwork is very realistic and very beautiful artwork. Mine is free-flowing and energetic and just all over the place, because that's who I am. So I can't create something that is not me. You cannot create something that is not you. The whole point of creating is so that source can come through you in whatever medium you're being called to. So sharing that is what you're here to do. And you can't do it if you're beating yourself up and you're creating masterpieces all the time. Trust me when I tell you, there are going to be less masterpieces than you think. There are going to be more fuck-ups and more failures, because you're growing, because you're expanding, because you're seeing what's out there and seeing how it is that you express yourself. So this is about creativity, but it's also about how you express yourself and how you can go about changing that story. So let's go over some action steps. First, create a list of the hobbies that you've once loved and stop pursuing. Pick one and try it again. What can you pick up that you maybe let go of? Spend about 20 minutes practicing that old hobby, even if it feels rusty. Doesn't matter. Even if you feel like, oh my gosh, I haven't done this in so long. Think of it as riding a bike. Once you get on that bike and you start going, you'll be fine. Research local or online groups. So like meetups or, that kind of thing, where you can go and do your chosen hobby for inspiration. And I think I talked about this yesterday, where you can just go and, spend some time with people who are doing like things. Again, share something that you've created with a trusted friend. Make sure that you're going to share your work with someone who is going to give you constructive criticism, not going to beat you up. All right. And next is buy or borrow a tool or a resource to help you to dive into your next hobby. So maybe, you don't normally use, you're a musician and you don't normally use a harmonica. I don't know why I thought of harmonica, but maybe you don't normally use it. So borrow that tool or buy that tool, that instrument, and practice with that. Maybe you're an artist who works in acrylic and maybe you want to try some oils, or maybe you want to try watercolors. Maybe you're a poet and you want to write a long form story. Maybe you're a small business owner and you want to build that to a big business. So you need to be able to find something that helps you to grow that business. Whatever that may be, expand yourself. Dive back into that hobby or that idea that you've had and just expand how you would do that. So journaling prompts: why did I stop these hobbies? And how can I rekindle that passion? So why did I stop these hobbies? And what can I do to rekindle the passion? Which hobbies made me feel happiest and most fulfilled? Which hobbies made me feel happiest and most fulfilled? Number 3, how can I make space in my life to pursue those hobbies without guilt? How can I make space in my life to pursue those hobbies without guilt? Number 4, what is one skill I'd love to master by next year? What is one skill I'd love to master in the next year? And number 5, how do hobbies add value to my life beyond just having fun? How do hobbies add value to my life beyond just having fun? So I hope this resonated with you. If it did, give it a thumbs up, hit the notification bell. Tomorrow we're going to talk about building a creative routine. And subscribe if this is something that resonates with you. And don't forget, live life adventurously. It's the only way to live.